Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit room, bathed in the glow of a solitary lamp, the phone's persistent buzz intruded upon the quiet. Twice it pulsated, then paused, as if gathering strength, before resuming its urgent call. Startled from a deep slumber, a figure stirred, their body language exuding fatigue as they navigated the obstacle course of their cluttered coffee table. An unintended game of knock the mug ensued as they grasped for the insistent device.
Hello?
The voice, like gravel on silk, betrayed its owner's sleep-laden state, a stark contrast to the bright noon sunshine that bathed the outside world. Before he could even register the caller's identity, the voice on the other end exploded with urgency. "Leighton, it's Martin! Martin from the theater! Did Richard forget his lines again?"
Worse. Much worse.
Martin's voice dropped dramatically.
Caroline broke her leg skiing this weekend. She's out for 6 to 8 weeks minimum.
Leighton winced. Caroline played the female lead in their historical drama, Victorian Shadows, scheduled to open in just 2 weeks. That's terrible. Is she okay?
She'll live, but the show might not. We have no understudy.
Staring at the ceiling, Leighton counted the water stains. 3. Same as yesterday. Call Diane? Or maybe that woman who auditioned. What was her name?
Everyone's committed to other productions or unavailable. We've called everyone, Leighton.
Something in Martin's tone made Leighton sit up straighter, clutching his worn gray t-shirt.
Why are you calling me about this?
The uncomfortable silence stretched so long, Leighton checked to see if the call had dropped.
Martin? You know the script inside and out. You've been assistant directing.
No. The realization dawned with horrifying clarity. Absolutely not. Leighton, please. You want me to play Luciana? A woman? The female lead? You have the right build. You're tall but slender. You have experience and most importantly, you know every line already. Leighton paced his small apartment, the floorboards creaking beneath his bare feet. This is insane! The show opens in 2 weeks!
We'll cancel if we have to, but this production means everything to the company. The Historical Society funded us specifically for this Victorian piece. If we don't deliver, the unspoken reality hung between them. Their small theater group struggled financially each season. This historical drama was their chance to establish credibility with important donors. Cancellation would be devastating.
I'll look ridiculous, Leighton muttered, already knowing he was wavering. Eleanor says she can make it work. She's our costume director for a reason. And the Victorian costumes are elaborate enough that with the right makeup and a wig...
A wig?
Leighton touched his short hair reflexively.
Just come to the emergency rehearsal tonight, 6 o'clock. See if it's even possible before you decide.
Dropping back onto the couch, Leighton closed his eyes.
Fine, I'll come. But I'm not saying yes.
That's all I'm asking. The relief in Martin's voice was palpable.
See you at 6.
The theater's back entrance was propped open with a brick when Leighton arrived, 5 minutes late, and still uncertain about the entire proposition. The familiar smell of dust and wood polish greeted him as he made his way through the backstage area toward voices echoing from the main stage.
He's here!
Martin called out, spotting Leighton first. The entire cast turned in unison, making him feel like he'd walked into an ambush. Eleanor, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair, rushed forward, measuring tape dangling around her neck. Her bright purple blouse and flowing black pants made her look like an artist, which she essentially was. Thank goodness. We need to get your measurements immediately.
The costume fitting is critical. I haven't agreed to anything, Leighton protested weakly, already being guided toward the costume department. Just measurements, Martin called after them. No commitment! The costume room was a chaotic explosion of fabrics, half-finished garments, and mannequins in various states of dress. Eleanor worked efficiently, wrapping her measuring tape around Leighton's chest, waist, and hips, muttering numbers to her assistant, who scribbled in a notebook. You're actually perfect for this, Eleanor said, measuring his inseam. Caroline was tall for a woman, nearly 5'10". You're what, 6'1"? We'll have to take the hems down a bit, but the proportions will work. I have broad shoulders, Leighton pointed out, still looking for reasons this wouldn't work. Nothing a properly fitted corset won't fix. It'll redistribute your silhouette beautifully. Corset? The word came out as a squeak. You expect me to wear a corset? Eleanor looked up, her expression dead serious. For historical accuracy, absolutely. The dinner scene demands it. Victorian women were tightly corseted, especially for formal occasions. I can't possibly. We have modern theatrical corsets, not as restrictive as historical ones, but they give the right look. You'll manage. Before Leighton could protest further, she'd finished her measurements and was already pulling sketch portfolios from a shelf. Luciana's dinner costume is our masterpiece, cream-colored with pearl detailing, empire waist with a gathered bustle. She flipped through designs, showing elaborate drawings. The corset will be under it all, of course. Leighton's head spun. I haven't even agreed to do this. Eleanor stopped, finally looking at him properly. The theater needs you, Leighton. We all do. Martin appeared in the doorway, script in hand.
Ready to try a reading?
The next hour passed in a blur as Leighton read Luciana's lines from the script. The character was a strong-willed young woman navigating Victorian society while hiding a scandalous past. The dinner scene was pivotal. Luciana delivered a passionate monologue about women's rights while seated at a formal dinner, shocking the assembled guests.
This actually might work,
Richard, who played the male lead, admitted after they finished the reading. You've got good instincts for the character. Eleanor nodded enthusiastically. And with auburn hair, we have the perfect wig. You'll look stunning. The cast's hopeful faces made refusal increasingly difficult. When Martin pulled him aside, Leighton knew he was fighting a losing battle. One rehearsal in costume. That's all I'm asking. If it's a disaster, we'll find another solution. Leighton ran a hand through his hair. When? Wednesday, 2 days from now. Eleanor needs time to alter the costumes. Fine. One rehearsal. Wednesday arrived too quickly. Leighton had spent the intervening time pacing his apartment, practicing Luciana's lines in increasingly higher vocal registers, and questioning his sanity. When he arrived at the theater, Eleanor immediately whisked him to the dressing rooms. Strip down to your underwear, she instructed, hanging garment bags on a hook. We start with the basics. The basics? Leighton asked, hesitantly removing his navy blue Henley. Corset, petticoats, then the dress itself. There's an order to these things. The cream-colored corset looked innocent enough on the hanger, structured fabric with delicate boning and satin laces down the back. Eleanor helped him into it, positioning it around his torso. This sits lower than you might expect, she explained, adjusting the placement. Now, hold the front while I lace the back. The first tug of the laces made Leighton gasp. That's tight! It needs to be snug to create the proper silhouette. Too loose and it won't support the dress correctly. Eleanor continued lacing, pulling methodically. Breathe from your upper chest, not your stomach. By the time she finished, Leighton felt like his midsection had been encased in a rigid tube. Each breath came shallow and constrained.
How am I supposed to move in this? Or speak?
He asked, trying to find a comfortable way to stand.
You'll adapt. Victorian women managed complex lives in much tighter corsets.
Eleanor was already reaching for the next layer, a soft cotton chemise that went over the corset. This protects the outer garment from the corset and your skin. Layer by layer, Luciana emerged. Petticoats created the proper fullness for the magnificent cream-colored dress with its intricate pearl beading and delicate lace trim. The sleeves fitted snugly to his arms before flaring at the wrists, and the neckline dipped modestly to showcase the collarbone. Now, for the transformation, Eleanor said, reaching for a makeup kit. With expert hands, she softened his features, adding subtle color to his lips and cheeks. The auburn wig came last, long waves cascading past his shoulders, framing his face with soft tendrils. When Eleanor finally allowed him to look in the mirror, Leighton barely recognized himself. The person staring back wasn't him at all, but Luciana, elegant, poised, and unmistakably feminine. "Remarkable," Eleanor whispered. "You look perfect."
"I can't breathe,"
Leighton complained, tugging at the corset through layers of fabric.
"You don't need to breathe. You need to project."
Martin appeared in the doorway, his eyes widening at the transformation.
"My God, Eleanor, you've outdone yourself."
The cast's reaction was equally enthusiastic when Leighton emerged onto the stage. Richard's jaw actually dropped, and several others applauded.
"Ladies and gentlemen," Martin announced, "I give you Luciana."
The rehearsal began smoothly enough. Leighton had studied the blocking and knew where to stand, how to move, when to speak. But as they approached the dinner scene, problems emerged. Seated at the long table laden with prop food, Leighton found each breath increasingly difficult. The corset, manageable while standing, became torturous when seated.
"The expectations placed upon women are,"
Leighton paused, struggling for air,
"are merely chains disguised as social graces."
"Project!" Martin called from the audience.
"We can barely hear you."
Taking a deeper breath sent pain shooting through his ribs.
"The expectations placed upon women?"
Louder this time, but the effort left him lightheaded.
"From the beginning of the monologue, and remember to use your diaphragm,"
Martin instructed.
"I can't. This corset."
"Victorian women gave speeches in corsets all the time. Find a way." Frustration mounting, Leighton tried again, pushing through the discomfort. 3 lines into the monologue, black spots appeared in his vision. He gripped the edge of the table.
"I need a moment."
Wobbling to his feet, he barely made it off stage before collapsing against a wall, gasping for air. Eleanor rushed to his side. "You're hyperventilating. Small breaths."
"Can't breathe. The corset isn't that tight. You're panicking, which makes it worse."
She helped him to a chair. "Sit up straight. That actually gives your lungs more room." Gradually, his breathing steadied. Martin appeared, concern evident on his face.
"Maybe this was a mistake."
"No," Eleanor said firmly. "He just needs to learn proper corset breathing. Caroline had the same issue during her first fitting." "I can't do this," Leighton whispered. "You can," Eleanor insisted. "We just need to adjust your technique." The rest of rehearsal was postponed as Eleanor took Leighton back to the costume room, loosening the corset slightly. The trick is posture, she explained, demonstrating a straight-backed stance. Victorian women were taught from childhood. You've had 2 hours. Luciana has a 3-minute monologue during the dinner scene, Leighton pointed out, while seated. Then we practice, right now. For the next hour, Eleanor drilled him on proper breathing techniques. Sitting tall, using the upper chest rather than the abdomen, taking smaller breaths more frequently. By the end, Leighton could recite a full paragraph without feeling faint. Better, Eleanor nodded approvingly. Now we add projection. Another hour passed before Martin returned to find them. Everything okay in here? Leighton stood, smoothing the cream-colored dress. I think so. Can we try the scene again? Back on stage, the dinner scene resumed. This time, Leighton focused on Eleanor's techniques. Sitting rigidly upright at the table, he began Luciana's monologue again. The expectations placed upon women are merely chains disguised as social graces. We are bound by corsets that restrict not just our bodies, but our very thoughts. His voice carried clearly this time, the words ringing with newfound conviction. By the end of the monologue, the watching cast members broke into spontaneous applause. That, Martin said, beaming, was Luciana. The next week passed in a whirlwind of rehearsals. Leighton, or rather Luciana, grew more comfortable with each passing day. The corset became less an instrument of torture and more a tool of transformation. Eleanor made subtle adjustments to ease his comfort while maintaining the historical silhouette. The auburn wig, initially hot and itchy, became a crown of sorts. When the long tresses were arranged artfully around his shoulders, something shifted in his demeanor. His gestures became more graceful, his voice modulated to a higher, softer register that somehow carried more emotional weight.
You're finding her,
Martin observed during a break.
Luciana is coming through.
Opening night arrived with the usual chaos of a small theater production. Backstage, cast members rushed between dressing rooms, last-minute costume adjustments were made, and the air buzzed with nervous energy. Eleanor helped Leighton into the now familiar layers. The cream-colored corset, still restrictive, but now almost comforting in its structure. The petticoats, chemise, and finally, the elaborate pearl-studded dress. The auburn wig was styled more elegantly than during rehearsals, with small pearl combs holding soft curls away from his face. Ready? Eleanor asked, making a final adjustment to the dress's bustle. Looking in the mirror, Leighton no longer saw himself pretending to be someone else. Luciana gazed back, confident and composed. Ready? She answered, voice steady and clear. The first act flowed smoothly. From the wings, Martin gave occasional thumbs-up signals, his relief evident. When the dinner scene approached, Leighton felt a flutter of nerves, but pushed them aside. Taking measured breaths, she walked on stage and took her place at the head of the table. The lighting caught the pearl details of her cream-colored dress, making them shimmer. Drawing herself up with perfect Victorian posture, she waited for her cue.
Surely you cannot mean to challenge the natural order, Miss Blackwood,
Richard's character intoned, setting up her monologue. Luciana smiled, the practiced expression of a woman accustomed to battling with words. The expectations placed upon women are merely chains disguised as social graces. We are bound by corsets that restrict not just our bodies, but our very thoughts. The words flowed forth, powerful and clear. The audience leaned forward in their seats, captivated. By the monologue's conclusion, Luciana's passionate argument for women's intellectual freedom had the fictional dinner guests and the actual audience in stunned silence. The scene ended. The lights dimmed. And then came the sound Leighton had never expected to hear while wearing a corset and auburn wig. Thunderous applause. Backstage during intermission, the cast surrounded him with congratulations.
"You were magnificent," Richard gushed. "That monologue gave me chills." "The Historical Society representatives are ecstatic,"
Martin reported, practically floating with relief.
"They said your portrayal captures the complexity of forward-thinking Victorian women perfectly."
The second act went equally well. By the final curtain call, Leighton was exhausted but exhilarated. When Luciana took her bow, the audience rose to their feet, the standing ovation washing over her like a wave. Later, after the crowd had dispersed and most of the cast had gone to the traditional opening night party, Leighton sat in the dressing room, still in full costume. Eleanor knocked gently before entering. Not joining the celebration? Running her fingers through the soft auburn waves, Luciana shook her head. Not quite ready to take all this off yet. Eleanor smiled knowingly. The first time I designed Victorian costumes, I was fascinated by how they change the wearer. There's something transformative about stepping into another time, another identity. I didn't expect to feel so connected to her, to Luciana. Looking up, she met Eleanor's eyes in the mirror. Does that sound strange? Not at all. The best actors find pieces of themselves in their characters. What happens when the run ends? 3 weeks isn't very long. Eleanor perched on the edge of the dressing table. That depends on you, doesn't it? Some actors leave their characters on stage. Others find the experience changes them in ways they carry forward. The silence stretched between them, comfortable and contemplative. The Historical Society wants to extend our run, Eleanor finally said. 2 additional weekends. Martin's announcing it at the party. Something lightened in Luciana's chest, a feeling that had nothing to do with the corset's constraints. Really? They were particularly impressed with you. Said your performance made them see the period in a new light. Rising from the dressing table, Luciana smoothed the cream-colored dress with practiced hands. I should make an appearance at the party then. You should, but first... Eleanor reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. I have something for you. Inside lay a delicate pearl hairpin, vintage and slightly worn. It belonged to my grandmother, Eleanor explained. She wore it in her auburn hair for special occasions. After watching you these past weeks, finding Luciana's strength through your own, I thought you should have it. Tears threatened to spill and ruin the carefully applied makeup. I can't accept this. You already have. Taking the pin, Eleanor secured it in the auburn waves. Perfect. The party was in full swing when they arrived, cast members and crew celebrating their success. Conversations paused momentarily as Luciana entered, still in full costume, the cream-colored dress glowing under the warm lights of the theater lobby. Martin raised his glass. To our Luciana, who proved that sometimes the most unexpected casting creates the most authentic performance. Glasses clinked amid cheers. Richard approached, offering a drink and a warm smile. Beautiful pin, he noted, gesturing to the pearl adornment in her auburn hair. A gift, she explained, touching it gently. A reminder. Of tonight's triumph? Luciana smiled, her posture perfect despite hours in the restrictive corset. of unexpected transformations. Later, as the party wound down, Martin found her by the window, gazing out at the quiet street.
The reviews are already coming in online, he said excitedly. They're calling your performance revelatory and the discovery of the season.
That's wonderful for the theater. It's wonderful for you, too. The director from the West Side Playhouse was here tonight. He wants to talk to you about their upcoming production of The Heiress, another period piece. Luciana turned, surprise evident in her expression. Another female role? If you're interested, it would mean staying in character a while longer. His eyes twinkled with amusement.
Think you can handle another corset?
Looking down at the cream-colored dress that had become a second skin, Luciana laughed softly. Strangely enough, I think I've gotten rather good at breathing in one. Is that a yes? I'd like to hear more. The night deepened around the theater as the last celebrants departed. In the dressing room, Eleanor helped her out of the elaborate costume, each layer removed with care. Will you keep the wig on for the party at Richard's? Eleanor asked, hanging up the cream-colored dress. Touching the auburn waves, now so familiar they felt like her own, Luciana nodded. For tonight at least. And tomorrow? Tomorrow brought another performance, another night of becoming Luciana, and after that, another, the extended run, possibly a new role beyond that. Each day a choice, each performance a chance to explore this unexpected path. Tomorrow, she said with newfound certainty. I think Luciana might be here to stay. Eleanor smiled, understanding flickering in her eyes. I thought she might be. Outside, the night welcomed her with cool air and possibility. The pearl hairpin caught the streetlight, glinting like a promise among auburn waves. With each measured breath, easier now despite the years of breathing differently, Luciana stepped forward into a future neither Leighton nor she had ever imagined, one created by cream-colored corsets, standing ovations, and the unexpected liberation found within transformation's constraints.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!